Welcome to another edition of the Doc Talk Podcast. Good to have you along, our 13th episode of 2024. If you are watching on YouTube, I'm going to ask you right now, please, yes, I'm begging, take a second and subscribe to the channel. You can help us grow. You can help us get our content out there, and you won't miss any content when it comes right to you. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, or wherever you choose to listen to podcasts, make sure to follow us, give us a ranking and a rating, and even write a review if you have a little bit of time. And if you want to go directly to the podcast, just go to doctalksports.com. That's doctalksports.com. You might be noticing right now a little bit of a different setup that we have. We are not in the basement for this recording of the Doc Talk Podcast, and quite frankly, I don't know when we're going to be back into the basement. I had a major disaster. It happened. I didn't say much about it because it happened right after the tornadoes that devastated Elkhorn and Bennington and Blair and Minden, Iowa. So I didn't say anything, but I came downstairs to do my radio show about 4:30 in the morning, and I had about 9 inches of water spread out through 1,400 square feet of my basement. My water main busted right at my meter, and it caused a shit show. Let's just put it that way. So I do want to send out a thank you to ServPro Southwest. ServPro, listen, you hear about these guys cleaning up shit all the time. These guys did an amazing job. They got in there. They dried the place out. They cataloged everything. So if you have a disaster that hits your house, call ServPro Southwest. Jared was our project manager. He did a wonderful job, and I cannot recommend them enough. Dr. Rob Zadiska, what's good? What are you drinking there, buddy?
Oh, we got beer. So longtime podcast listener, Twitter follower, Syracuse, Nebraska native, and current Pennsylvania resident who probably supplied, like, he and Craig.
And I got to say, before you keep going, Craig wrote me the other day. Craig, I have beer in the fridge that's now shut off. I don't think beer goes bad, does it?
If it's like recently canned in crowlers, we should drink that.
It's not in crowlers. It's in regular cans.
Then you're good. I mean, the craft stuff. Yeah, I mean, you want to drink it within a few months.
I know. I'll get a refrigerator and get it back on it to cool off a little bit. But Craig was just here about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he brought his mom here to the office. And by the way, we are recording at MCL Construction. This is the
MCL. They are the erstwhile location sponsor.
I want to thank Bob Carlisle and Tony Fuccinero for letting us use the facility to record this podcast. But Craig dropped off some beer here about 3 or 4 weeks ago, brought his 93-year-old mom up.
That is outstanding. Craig's one of the most faithful listeners and beer suppliers.
Yes.
I mean, and it's all cool stuff because it's all Georgia beer.
All Georgia beer.
It's all Georgia beer. It's outstanding stuff.
But he wrote me the other day. I was in New Orleans for my daughter's graduation, and his mom passed away. And I just wanted to let Craig know that, hey, we're thinking about you, and we're sorry that happened. I mean, 93 is a good life, though, man. And I talked to her out in the car in the parking lot, and she was spunky then. She had the big old sunglasses on and stuff, but she was to make sure her eyes didn't get blinded by the sun.
I kind of feel bad because that was a tie to Nebraska that I know Craig and his son, they would come back pretty frequently. And
they'd come back quite often. So hopefully they keep coming back because we do like your beer. We like it when you go smoking the band for us.
I feel bad because you had that local connection. You had that family member that passed, and I feel bad.
Yeah.
I was going to say, condolences to the family. I hope everybody's hanging in there. It's one of those, you said it, you get to 93, that's a great life. Man, it still hurts.
It does. It does. So, Jason, that's like industrial beer. That's like big truck beer. What is that?
It's good stuff. So it's Big Truck Brewing, which they are out of it's Queenstown, Maryland. So it's a Maryland beer. So a lot of the stuff Jason gets, it's kind of the East Coast, Upper East Coast, Ohio Valley stuff. So he sent like
a boatload of beer.
Oh my God, dude. Not messing around levels of stuff.
Really?
So, well, he'll just take a box and over 9 months, if something's interesting, he'll throw a few of them in there.
Okay.
And then when then like he'll usually try to make a trip out to Nebraska, or in this case, his dad Jerry had headed out to Pennsylvania to visit them, and when his folks came back from Pennsylvania, they brought the beer back. So they were our beer mules. So big thanks to Jerry.
Beer mules. Well, sounds so illegal.
So my son, it's a little Smokey and the Bandit. So my son and I drove down. They got a place down by Beaver Lake. So my son and I drove down, met Jerry and his wife down there, and picked it up. But I mean, it was one of these, like, took two people to haul this box into the back of my Explorer.
You needed a forklift. To get that in there.
Damn near needed one. But yeah, he'll literally fill this box over like 9 months.
Wow.
So we got a selection. So yeah, he did like the mixed pack. So I just grabbed like a 6-pack out of that box today, and it was all Big Truck Brewing out of Queenstown. And well, I don't know, Owen, what do you think? I mean, you're drinking the Mexican lager. How's that?
He doesn't have a microphone today, okay. So he's we're working makeshift. Hopefully, the next remote we'll be able to do that.
That's okay. So you got what is it? The Cruiser. The Cruiser is the Mexican lager. So I tried the half cab hazy IPA. You're drinking our guest is drinking the Crew Cab IPA. I'm working on the Dooley Double IPA, and we haven't popped it open yet. We got the K5 Topless Blonde here as well too.
In short, we have a lot of beer to drink. I'm not drinking any beer because I'm on a weight loss program.
And you look sexy.
Whatever. My daughter's getting married in a couple weeks, and on my radio show, I'm being paid to be a spokesperson for PhD weight loss, and so I'm trying to follow it to the best of my ability, and we'll see how it works out. I think it's going to work out great. I've lost 6 or 7 pounds in the first 2 weeks.
Now, this is just diet adjustments, or is this diet and exercise? Because you were working the diet, kind of the work thing, the walking thing.
Well, it's diet. They want you to exercise, but I'm not much of an exerciser. I did walk 3 miles today, but I've got prepackaged food.
But you were doing the walking thing prior to
a little bit.
Because you were at some point thinking about doing, what's the walk through Portugal?
The Camino de Santiago.
Okay.
So and those guys just got back. They took 3 weeks to walk 200 miles. I was supposed to go. I backed out because I had a graduation. I've got my daughter's wedding. And now with
got a flooded
basement, which we're going to redo the whole basement. That's the plan. And just, we're not? Or... He's like,
Owen's over there going like, what are you talking about? I'm going to redo the whole basement.
That's very true.
Are they finally going to fix the sign?
What's that?
Are they finally going to fix the sign?
You mean
the Hawkeye sign?
The Hawkeye sign? Maybe. That's Connor Orr, by the way. Connor Orr, of course, is a...
See, the sign was above that 9-inch water level, so the sign survived.
It lives on?
Yes. So Connor, of course, a longtime sponsor of the podcast. We're going to hear from him a little bit later on because we had a lot to talk about with what's changing in college sports, college athletics, in the NIL world. The House case is about getting ready to get negotiated, and I'll bring it up a little bit later on because I think there's going to be some stuff happening in the next 2 weeks that could be pretty major news. Before we dive into that, a couple things I want to get to with Dr. Rob, and that is your daughter just won a national title. Did I hear that?
She did. So beach wrestling.
You wrestle like on sand?
On sand.
Is this Greco-Roman?
The way the Greeks did it.
Really?
Exactly. It's kind of a combination. If you could combine Greco-Roman with sumo wrestling. So I got to double check the rules. Jennifer, my wife, went out to, it was North Carolina's where they had nationals at. And she kind of did it on a whim. So I couldn't get off because of work. So Jennifer went. Went through the coaching certification course. So she's now like a USA Wrestling certified coach. Got all the rules down. Did all the work up front on that end. And so she'd be way better on the rules than this. But basically, it's the first person that scores 3 points win. And if you can get there in a few different ways, you push the other person out of the ring, that's a point. Kind of sumo-esque there. If you get the opponent to get a body part other than a hand, you can brace yourself on the ground with the hand. But if an elbow, knee, or any other body part touches the sand, that's a point. If you do what would be considered kind of a standard takedown in wrestling, for all the wrestling people, you know what I'm talking about. Any other takedown would be 1 point. And then if you do a toss in which the opponent lands on their back, that's a 3-point takedown in the matches.
Oh, wow. Wow. I saw she had the gold medals on. So.
Yeah, so she entered in, she's 16. She entered in the U17 and the U20 divisions, won them both.
Wow.
So
the D1 offers coming yet? I
don't know about that, but there were actually a handful of college coaches there watching and talking with the kids, so she had some good conversations with people. And
cool.
We'll see what happens, but kind of the bigger thing is that you qualify for Worlds in Greece. So we're kind of trying to work the scheduling Tetris here to potentially go to Pan Am Games in July and then Worlds in Greece in September.
That is super cool. Well, congratulations. I'm sure you're a proud papa.
So, yeah, the one that, the only downside to the Greece thing, I don't know much about Greece. My wife
Athens.
Well, my wife
Corfu.
dove into it. Where they're having it in Greece, it's nice. It's on a beach, but it's like way up on a beach in northern Greece.
Oh.
And so you're away from like Athens, Sicily. No, I'm not Sicily. Sorry, Crete.
Sardinia?
Sardinia. I think that's it.
Okay.
Sorry, Sicily's over. That's Italy.
It's fairly close.
That's Italy. But yeah, so it's, I misspoke there. I drifted from Greece to Italy. The one thing that is close by is Mount Olympus is like 50 minutes away. So if you want to go visit Mount Olympus, this is where you want to be. So they're going to go. Piper said she's looking at it as a business trip. And so go hang out on a beach in Greece for a couple of days, visit Mount Olympus, wrestle a bunch of Asian and European and other wrestlers from around the world.
Okay,
there you go.
Let's bring Connor Orr in for this because I do have a question now. Can an athlete form their own LLC, create? Because you said it's going to be a business trip. Can an athlete form their own company and use that as a business trip when it comes to that? Because Connor is a sports agent. He should represent Piper, just to let you know. And then, but can they form a company like that?
Yes. Now, one thing I'm not going to be able to speak on international law. I don't know what the laws are over there. Just like here, like Keisei Tominaga, we still have issues with the immigration portion of this that are not easy to navigate. When they go in to regulate this, I'd like to see them try to tackle that. Because right now it's a mess. You either have to go with a F1 visa and basically make your path to permanency much more difficult, or you have to go with a student visa and then you can't earn more than, I want to say it's $600. In one calendar year.
I think that's what it wasn't with. So there was Nuelle, Noradine Nuelle. So the offensive guard for Nebraska just signed with the Saints.
Why is that?
He kind of thought that where he wasn't able to really do much with NIL the whole time he was in Lincoln.
It's a pre-existing law that at the time it went into place, and none of this was even contemplated. And it's not just with respect to athletes. It's so that people don't use a student visa and abuse it to be like a work visa when it's not. That was the thinking when that went into place way back when. In F1, think like Australian Pink Floyd. Right?
Yep.
They're coming here for a one-off, quick, 20-day tour, go back. That's really what that's for. Could you shove a square in a round hole and do that? Sure. But most kids who are playing here want the chance to be a permanent resident here, and an F1 visa is not going to get you there. A student visa, you have a much clearer path because, the policy justifications behind it are, hey, we want well-educated people to stay here.
So Tominaga, how is this any different than a professional athlete? When we have athletes from, Nikola.
Think about all the NBA
Jokic,
guys.
Look at all these guys. How is that any different now?
By the time they're a professional athlete, they're looking at somebody who is here permanently as opposed to somebody who's here for, a 1 to 4 year stint.
But Jokic is in here permanently. As soon as he won the NBA title last year, he went home.
He's probably on a different visa. He's not on the student visa.
That's fair. Those are just crazy things that just need to be adjusted, because if you have the opportunity to make money, and I'm going to use my Iowa kick here, but the punter was not able to make money off his name because Tory Taylor was an Australian, and
I did not actually know that.
No, he's Australian, and he couldn't make any money.
I had no idea.
And he was the most popular person when the punter's the most popular person on a football team, that's a serious problem.
They can often make money back home, but they cannot make it in the United States if they're on a student visa any more than $600.
So somebody like Tory Taylor, so Iowa's punter, got drafted.
Yep.
NFL guy now. So what's his situation? Does he go on some kind of pseudo-permanent work visa then?
Depends. I mean, either that or he got married. If he got married and gained permanency, I don't know. I don't know his status.
I don't think he's married yet. So, I mean, he's just going to be a professional athlete where I'm sure there's a way around it. I mean, there's been plenty of
transition to a work visa.
Yeah.
At that point.
So
I'm not a perfect immigration guy by any means.
But the work visa, though, is, I'm not calling it permanent. The work visa is a longer term visa.
It's just for a different purpose. The purpose is to make money, right?
Gotcha.
To work and to make money, whereas the student visa is to come here and be a student.
So the idea behind it, and I guess you kind of touched on that, the idea behind the student visa was to prevent people from coming to the U.S. working.
Yep. So
and doing this super simple, little easy student visa.
Well, the difference is that you don't want people to abuse the system where they're saying they're on a student visa because it's got a better path to permanency than a lot of the work visas do, and essentially use a student visa as a work visa. That was the thinking behind it at the time. But now with this, I mean, we clearly have to either create an exception or totally redo it. And I really don't do the immigration side. I only know it relative to this topic. A good resource on it, though, would be Cleet's office.
Blakeman.
Yes. So he's actually their West Omaha office, 114th, they're my neighbors.
Yes.
So Julie Crine there. And I believe Andrea Montoya does some too. Basically, whenever it comes to a serious immigration issue, I just kick it over there. I gave up on immigration once I found out that a violent felony neither has to be violent nor a felony to so qualify under the code. I said, if words don't mean what they mean anymore, I'm out. I quit.
So that's interesting. I mean, because in Nebraska's not alone, Iowa's not alone. Almost every university has foreign students and players that have the ability to make a little bit of money.
This completely changed the whole visa dynamic when you look at this, when there's this sharp distinction between a student visa and a work visa.
You know who's really fired up about it? Hockey coaches. You can't recruit the Canadian kids as easily as the northern states can because they can go right back home and make money.
Oh, and you're into the hockey, of course. You're very active in the UNO, NIL, and with the players over there. I never thought of that when it came to the Canadian players because you're right, Minnesota Duluth, Northern State, Michigan Tech, all those schools up there.
So those guys are all going to work their NIL deals in Canada.
Not basically. Just NIL, but they can swing back and forth, no problem. I mean, you're talking a couple hours trip as opposed to, think about summer training, right? They can continue to make money much more easily because you can go back and forth in a couple hours as opposed to Omaha, Nebraska to Brandon, Manitoba is 15 hours. It makes the recruiting pitch easy. Much easier for the northern states.
So all of those schools, you can keep making money in Canada and still go to school here.
Yep.
So if you're going to school in Detroit, wow. I mean, it's literally a 5-minute drive across the border, and you'll be fine.
Yep. So it affects recruiting even.
Okay, that's kind of an interesting dynamic. I mean, I don't know if anybody thought about that, but I mean, if you're in the Omaha area, I mean, hockey is a huge deal here.
Oh yeah.
I mean, when you've got a Division I team, the club level hockey, you've got
potentially a pro team coming.
Yeah. You've got a junior team.
That ain't happening.
I can hope.
That ain't happening.
Give me a little hope.
That ain't happening.
But you've got a junior national team in Omaha. You got a junior national team in Lincoln.
Yeah, and you got one in Kearney. So
God, that's right.
Yeah, you got a junior USHL team.
It's not a small deal when you think about the impact of that from hockey recruiting. So, I mean, one of my son's good friends,
Augustana has a hockey team.
D1 hockey.
Yeah.
So had a really fun season. They played UNO in Omaha this year. We geared up in all of our Augie gear, and it was Christmas Eve. So that was our Christmas Eve get together as we got some dinner, and we all went to the UNO Augustana hockey game.
Well, since we've already dove right into the NIL talk, we'll get there. But I do want to say, if you aren't wearing G2-5 shoes yet, you should be. I want to thank everybody who's reached out to Dr. Rob on Twitter. And
I got a convert.
Who'd you get as a convert?
Well, my guy John, he's a Columbus wrestling parent. I'm wearing him at Nebraska USA Wrestling Freestyle State, and he asked me about him, and he's got his Hokas on. I got my G2-5s on, and I said my G2-5s are better than the Hokas. Well, so he said he was like, all right. He goes, I'm giving him a try. So he went ahead, ordered a pair. He said they're better. Yeah, and he said it was interesting to me because the thing that helped me was. So my ankles aren't in great shape. I broke an ankle back last week in January. So that's kind of my big thing with them is that I wear those, and I mean, geez, my ankles feel great.
Did you get your second pair yet for the operating room?
Well, I've had that pair.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's already in use. So he said his knees ended up feeling better.
I'm telling you, it's crazy.
But yeah,
it's the Verso Shock technology, which is clinically proven to relieve knee pain.
Yeah, he texted me, not texted, he DM'd me on Twitter to tell me, he's like, hey, I went ahead, I took your word. He goes, I tried a pair. He said he used the discount code.
Well, and here's the cool thing about the discount code, because a lot of people were ordering shoes, and I appreciate everybody who reached out. In fact, a Catholic priest, Father Dave Korth at Sacred Heart, reached out to me. He goes, are the shoes for real? I go, yeah. He goes, good, because I just ordered a pair of work shoes because they have all black shoes for a priest, right? So, and they have a wide variety of styles. But the biggest complaint we got was, hey, the discount code didn't work. It had to go over 150 full.
It is. Yeah, you got to go.
So here's the deal. You can use the promo code DocTalk20 to save $20 on orders of $100 or more before taxes and shipping, or DocTalk30 for orders on $150 or more before taxes and shipping. So we got a little movement in there for you. A 60-day try defy guarantee. Go to gravitydefier.com. You won't be disappointed. I have mine on right now. Rob's got his on right now.
Which that's the other thing about these shoes. How many shoes have okay, if they're not that good, send them back and we'll refund you?
Not many.
Nobody
does, because once you wear the shoes,
you're done. Remember, you'd buy your shoes, you could wear them in the house on carpet. You got the sole dirty, you're screwed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would that's a pretty good deal. Yeah, if you don't like them,
send them back.
They will freaking refund you the money.
So focus on your foot health. Go to gravitydefier.com. Use the promo code DocTalk20 at checkout to save $20 on orders of $100 or more before taxes and shipping, or DocTalk30 at checkout to save on $30 on orders of $150 or more before taxes and shipping. Do you want to thank Husker Hounds, 2 locations in the Omaha area? Scotty over at Husker Hounds is a great dude. You got all the spring stuff and summer stuff coming in. You can start getting stocked up for the fall. Of course, the Big Ten baseball tournament's getting underway in Omaha this next week. Then hopefully you have the NCAA tournament for Nebraska, and that will transition right into football. Again, 2 locations in the Omaha area, or online at huskerhounds.com.
Which I'm pretty sure Scott can get you he'll get you the Creighton baseball gear too if you need it.
Yeah, both teams are really, really good. I mean, dude, Creighton did sweep Nebraska.
Ed Service they are a sneaky good baseball.
And of course, Nebraska, the number 2 seed in the upcoming Big Ten tournament. So I think they're going to get into the NCAA tournament. That shouldn't be a worry. The Orr Law Group, of course, Connor Orr is here with us today. He's our resident NIL expert. The Orr Law Group, which has just changed, right? I mean, you've had a hell of a year, right? Now you're just by yourself.
We actually just made 2 new hires. So,
is it going to stay the Orr Law Group, or are we going to change the name again?
I'm not buying another domain anytime soon. What an ass sake.
Visit Orr Law Group. Is it orlawgrp.com? That's orlawgrp.com, or you can call it 402-408-6488, or email him at connor@orlawgrp.com. Do want to thank Centris Federal Credit Union. They're with us all year with the Doc's Diagnosis. It's their 90th year. They're going to have a big music festival on July 27th at Exarban Stinson Park. I was down there yesterday. Signs all over the place. I believe 4 or 5 bands that day, including our own Owen Justice. He'll go on, I believe, at 6:45. And, it's going to be a night of music, fun, food trucks, all sorts of good stuff. And, of course, go to huskermax.com when you want to find all your Husker news. They help distribute this podcast, put our content up there. We appreciate that. huskermax.com. All right. So, Connor, what we started with the visas and the foreign players. I never thought we were going to go there. That was a new subject I didn't think we were going to get to. Little Birdie told me that we're going to hear some major news in college athletics in the next 10 days. I don't know what it is. They wouldn't tell me what it was, but they just said some major news is going to come. If you've been following kind of the tea leaves, I think it's going to pertain to the House case, which is the NCAA versus House. Do you agree with that, or what?
I think settlement's close. Yeah, I mean, follow the news cycle, right? I mean, if you just Google it, there's news on that every single day for the last couple of weeks. I mean, in cases that are of that stature, that are that public, when major things are going to come on them, you understand, the media has their sources, and it's no coincidence that we've had a huge pump of articles coming out the last 72 hours. I think it might even be sooner.
Really? Yeah, I mean, that's possible. And what that's good. See, here's where I probably disagree with a lot of people. And Rob, I don't know how you're going to feel with this. I don't know if there should be a settlement. And I'm not saying that the rules shouldn't change, but the rules were the rules until they changed the rules. Mm-hmm. Why is somebody entitled to money why is Rob entitled to $100,000 from when he played in 1994? Why? I don't know why you got to go back and retroactively pay all these people.
It doesn't go back that far.
Where's it going to go?
My understanding is that it fits within some sort of statute of limitations that's applicable. So I believe you're going back 4 or 5 years.
But is it?
Which is interesting because for people listening to the podcast, to kind of bring them up on the whole House lawsuit. Technically, was it a lawsuit? Mm-hmm. It was a lawsuit.
Yep. It's still pending.
Yeah. So essentially, it was an antitrust lawsuit against the NCAA.
Yep.
And so, with that statute of limitations as it pertains to the athletes, because kind of one of the comments that I saw was that you saw there was it was a group of 5 athletic director. So an athletic director at a group of 5 school. So not a major school. And what was interesting about it is the NCAA sent out a memo to all of their member institutions that kind of broke down, hey, here's what we're anticipating the settlement's going to be. Here's what the costs are going to be. Here's how we're going to try to distribute this over everybody over X number of years. And they're kind of hitting, what was interesting about is they're hitting the Power 5s, which is rapidly turning into the Power 2.
40% of the share comes from
40% of the share, and the group of 5 is going to have the people who have the lesser amount of money are shouldering 60% of the share. Now, it's way more schools. I mean, the number of individual institutions is way more. But that group is getting the larger portion of the share. And so you've got it was one of these group of 5 athletic directors made the comment specifically. He was like, I don't see why I have to reduce my budget by 2 to 6%, which doesn't sound like much, but we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars here. Why I have to reduce my budget by 2 to 6%. so we can go back in time and pay Zion Williamson.
That's what I don't understand.
Was his quote.
Well, and currently right now, at least the way the memo reads is Division 2 and 3 shouldn't be touched, but everything is fluid. Which, I mean, having grown up in a political family and paid attention to politics for as long as I have, that usually means they're probably going to have to pay something.
Which
don't believe the first thing on it.
And that's the thing. And it's when you say pay, the method of the paying is their distribution that they get from the NC2A for major NC2A events. So D2 football playoffs, Division 1, the NC2A basketball playoffs. I mean, the thing that's interesting here is potentially the largest money-making mechanism within all of this
is not associated with the NCAA.
It's going to be the Power Five. It's going to be the
college football.
It's going to be the college football playoffs, which is not a freaking NC2A event. So the biggest moneymaker doesn't feed any of this into that. It doesn't have to pay a dime into this. And those schools that are all within that still get to reap that reward. And they're the group of schools that are in that 40% as opposed to the 60%.
And mind you, I haven't done anywhere near the research of the attorneys involved in the actual suit. But, theoretically speaking, I don't disagree with you, but that's something that I believe the NCAA would have had to, if it was even possible, third party them in. But the argument would be is that they didn't exist at the time, so how could they be on the hook for it? So I suppose that's probably the juxtaposition to it. But yeah,
that's if you look at the commentary coming in. So I got a son who plays Division II football, so it's kind of, I always keep a little bit of a finger on the pulse of that world. And when you look at that, all of these D2, D3, I mean, even the FCS people are pissed about this because they're sitting there going, okay, we had zero dog in this fight when it started. We got zero dog in the fight now. And we're going to have to foot a chunk of this bill. And it's going to be millions over 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's billion. They're saying what, 2.6, 2.7 billion?
2.7 billion over 10 years.
Now that's 2.7 billion total.
My understanding is that's what's been demanded, and that's what's going to be paid. I'm not sure. I mean, nobody got a discount.
Yeah.
I mean,
let's say that is. So let's just say I'm gonna round numbers here for easy math. That's $2.5 billion over 10 years. So
if you look at the calculator out?
Well, no, what I was going to say is if you look at a major college, a Division I school, average annual budget in 1 year averages about $4.8 to $5.3 billion. I've actually looked this shit up. I'm a nerd for some of this stuff. So like Nebraska 2022 annual budget for that year was, I think it was $5.3 billion.
For the entire university.
So that's the whole university budget.
Is that research dollars too?
I believe no. I could be wrong on that though. So don't quote. I mean, the
reason I ask is because as I understand it, the Big Ten's research dollars, make even football dollars look wimpy.
Well, at least when the one time I really did a deep dive into the research money on that was when Nebraska was joining the Big Ten, and the reason I had the ability to do that is because my dad was still alive and was director of housing and an associate dean down at UNL at the time, and so he had all that data available. And when Nebraska made that transition from the Big 12 to the Big 10. And the discussion was okay, this is a huge boon for the university on the athletic side from the dollar standpoint. You're going from, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like a $7 to $9 million payout from the Big 12, bumping up to like a $15 to $17 million a year payout from the Big Ten. Now it's $100 million. So you see how these numbers have grown from 2010 to 2024. But these, at the time, he said it was a tens of millions of dollars a year move athletically to jump to the Big Ten. It was a $100 million a year move to jump to the Big Ten academically in terms of the benefit to the university, like how much more research money, grants, et cetera, that are going to come into the program because of that move. I would imagine it's a hundreds of millions of dollars a year today. So the Big Ten move, if Nebraska as a state needs to worry about staying in the Big Ten, if we got to get the AAU certification back, whatever, from a dollars and cents standpoint, purely on the academic side, it dwarfs it on the athletic.
But let's go back to my original question. Why is anybody, before the Supreme Court case that legalized NIL, why is anybody entitled to money behind that? I don't understand that. I mean, the rules change. Okay, there's a rule change. Kind of like transfer portal.
But I kind of
these guys can't come back and ask for more money and say,
okay, but the argument is that they were breaking the law the entire time. All the way back to the beginning of the statute of limitations. From a principled standpoint, I don't necessarily disagree with you, because I think that there's a lot of case law that we have behind, like ex post facto, for example. You can't hold somebody criminally liable, under our Constitution for a new law for something they did 5 years ago. Right, because the law didn't exist at the time. But I think the argument in this case is that, well, that was the law, they just weren't following it, and we're going all the way back as far as we can on the statute of limitations. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with either side. That's how I understand it. Yeah, I mean, it's a money grab. To me, it's a money grab, and you're like, to me, from when the Supreme Court made its ruling, calling the NCAA basically an illegal collusion, you just from that point on, those guys are able to make money. The rules were different. I mean, we all
and I get that. I guess it's the thing is though, because there's a little bit of it in my mind. Now, I'm never going to sit here and say I'm owed money from somebody from when I played that I didn't get. So there were rules I had a hand in changing. And this is tiddlywinks dollars compared to what we're seeing now. But at the time, I lost out on tens of thousands of dollars of academic scholarship money when I played football, because at the time, excuse me, that's a really good beer, by the way.
That's from Pint 9. What is it?
It is, dude, Connor stopped by. This is the
Surfer on Acid.
There we go. Surfer on Acid Tropical IPA.
So you lost tens of thousands of dollars in academic money.
So there was tens of thousands of dollars of academic scholarship money I lost out on during my time in Lincoln, because the rule was if you were a scholarship athlete and you ended up getting an academic scholarship, you couldn't keep both. So now, I'd love to say it's like, okay, you know what? I got like 40 grand coming to me, because I went out and I was part of about 2 or 3 people who went out and argued that and brought that point up. The NCAA made the decision, okay, you know what? These guys are right. They did earn it. You can now keep it. So my younger brother, the very next year, hits the door down in Lincoln and gets a Regent scholarship or a President scholarship, whatever the scholarship was. Every year he was getting a $2,500 academic scholarship check that he just got to pocket. He was also on a full ride athletically. He earned both. And that was my point, is that you earn both. You ought to be able to keep both. It was the same criteria that any other student would have had to earn that academic money. How come I don't get to keep that solely because I'm an athlete? Now, none of this stuff went through any kind of administrative process. None of this went through any kind of legal process. It was just a point of, there was myself and a couple of other guys taking this issue to the NCAA, pointed it out to them. I kind of had a little bit of a privileged place because I was on a couple of NCAA committees, so I could grab my guy Cedric Dempsey and bend his ear and tell him that, hey, here's what's going on. This is bullshit. What needs to happen to change that? He gave me a couple of administrative hoops to jump through. We jumped through them. They changed the rule.
And you didn't go back and ask for money.
Exactly. Now, I hate to say it. This is one of those things where I do agree with you.
You hear that, folks? He hates to agree with me. I mean, this
is a point where I do agree with you. It's like the rule was the rule at the time. We understood that going in. I mean, for me, a little bit of this is like the concussion thing. Now, if the NFL, when I come down with CTE in 10 years and the NFL is like, yeah, we'll help you cover some costs here, I will gladly take that. But it's not like you went into this going, hey, I'm going to slam my body against some other 300-pound dude as hard as I can violently and not expect some adverse outcomes 30 years down the road. Yeah, there's some wear and tear from that. I get it. We know what we signed up for. And if any athlete who says they didn't know what they were signing up for is full of shit.
You had a thought.
So,
I can see,
and I understand
that legal brain just moving
and
over
I understand that, like, you can say if you change the law and it's illegal now, from a technical standpoint, within a realm of a statute of limitations, up to that point of statute of limitations, if you change the law and it's illegal now, it was illegal then. In principle, it was illegal then too.
What they changed was the NCAA rules, not the law. And this is just me giving the argument. So the rules were forced to change by the law. What the argument is that was always the law.
Gotcha.
And they were breaking it. So this is where this is
that actually kind of makes sense.
Okay, I remember when the speed limit went from 55 to 65. The law changed. I got a speeding ticket at 50.
I understand what Connor's saying.
That was the law change, but this is the rule change for the NCAA because it was forced to change by the law. The laws they used to get it through in the first place. It was already existed.
It was an illegal rule.
But to me, then why have a statute of limitations? Because that means the law was broken for the last 75 to 100 years.
Statutes of limitations exist because of policy justifications. In other words, memories get old, evidence gets stale. That's why they exist, and the legislature can set those. And I'm not a legislator, but we're stuck to those rules because of the policy justifications they come up with in any particular situation. Sometimes it's 1 year, sometimes it's 20 years, sometimes there's none. In this, as I understand it, there's like a 4 or 5 year. Now, from a principled standpoint, I think the argument that you're making is akin to like an ex post facto law. Like, this rule changed. Like, why are we punishing people going backwards? Well, the rule changed because the law was what it was, and they just figured out that how the law applies in this situation. Now, the other,
when you say that,
go ahead.
We're punishing people.
You're punishing the universities. They're having to cut their budgets. Now,
it is. It's one of those. You're punishing the NCAA.
Which is member institution.
Which is the member institution. So they're the ones sitting here going like, hey, this is bullshit, but well... Like Jay Billis, like I retweeted Jay on Friday. It was Friday or Saturday. Jay, if you follow Jay Billis on Twitter, he's outstanding.
He's a lawyer too,
but he's always been very proactive in terms of looking at the NCAA, looking at the member institutions, and saying, basically calling a spade, pointing out bullshit. There is the point that you could sit back and say, hey, as a member institution, don't punish us for something that as a FCS school or a group of 5 school, we really didn't have any hand in. Put all of this on the group of 5 guys. Let them pay the bill for this. Okay, well, why didn't... I mean, if you add up all D3, D2, and FCS schools, if you add up all of those schools, you've got several hundred schools. Why didn't several hundred schools 30 years ago,
file a lawsuit,
20 years ago, 10 years ago, say, hey, this isn't right, we should change?
Because they were making money.
I don't know about
that's the case with everything.
Well, I don't know about the D3 and the D2 schools, but the power players at the top were, and so they were going to silence everybody. So
your smaller schools it trickles down.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's the same reason that you get, Powder Puff State to come here and you pay them $2 million. They're going to do what the power brokers want because that pays for their entire budget for the year.
Yeah.
When they go get their ass kicked on, August 30th by some bigger school. I think the easy to consume analogy that I can think of in this situation is like, think of a conglomerate of companies that all have a parent company that has a set of bylaws that they adhere to. That's their internal rules. Okay, that's great, and everybody's going along to get along, and we're all making money, and the guy at the top's making a shitload. And it just so happens that a couple of the small guys at the bottom start to figure out, well, some of the bylaws of parent company are against the law. They sue them, they win. Those are the internal rules. The law that exists outside of that is what gave them the vehicle to say, those internal rules need to change. And the laws that they use to change those rules, be it, in this situation, like a breach of fiduciary duty, like in Nebraska, breach of fiduciary duty, you got a 4-year statute of limitations. Okay, well, everybody who's aggrieved down here, all the way up the chain, if you want to get in line to collect on it, you still have a viable claim going back 4 years to win. And then they say, oh, well, this guy won, get me on the bandwagon, I won on too. That's what led to this. Now, everybody can feel a little bit better.
It started with Ed O'Bannon, right? I mean, the O'Bannon case was really one of the first. So you have to go back to Ed O'Bannon, and then it's all kind of trickled down from there, correct?
Yep. We can feel a little bit better that I think it's like $1.5 or $1.6 billion of this. The vast majority of it's being covered by catastrophic insurance that's carried by the NCAA. I don't know what their policy says, but my understanding is that it's going to be covered. Whether or not the coverage is actually there or they're just trying to keep their probably biggest client happy, who knows? But that's covering 1.5, 1.6 of the 2.7 expected settlement.
You know who's making money off this? Lawyers.
100%.
People like you. I mean, I don't know how many lawyers are working on this.
Dude.
No, he's not. But you're the one who said he sent a text not too long ago. Said there's some lawyers who will never have to work again because of this.
100%. Yeah. So, and I'm just a local guy, right? So I'm not sitting here doing big class action suits, but a lot of times you see the dollar breakdown. I mean, it's seasonal now because we finally have the NCAA football game coming out. I don't know. I used to work at GameStop back in the day in high school, so I'm doubly a nerd. But Sam Keller was the head of that suit. I think he made $400.
That's it?
Yeah, from what I understand, I mean, he was one of the faces of that.
I remember he was one of the guys who was one of the faces of that lawsuit.
You've got a schedule of, and mind you, just like immigration, like I know enough to be dangerous, so I don't do it. But my understanding is that, the first couple of people in line are going to make the most. So you've got your lead plaintiff, and then you're going to have other people that are kind of up there. And you have different groups of your class for your class action suits. But the average player made like $300 or $400 off that. And in the meantime, we haven't had a freaking NCAA football game since 2014.
So here's my question with this case. I mean, do you see the athletes actually really making anything?
They'll make something. It'll be de minimis on an average basis.
Give me Give me I mean, and this is pure, I understand, 100% speculative. What do you think the average guy's going to get?
Couple $100 check.
But it's changing for the good going and that's why I look at it
It's
and go,
a send a message thing is what it really is.
But you could say, and that's what the lawyers want the 2.7 because they're going to get a lot of money out of it and they'll retire fat and happy. Athletes are going to, I'm sure there's some athletes who don't understand de minimis or whatever you just said, and they get a $200 check and it'll be like, this is all I got. But they'll be able to make more money going forward. And those guys going back 5 years who are probably thinking, man, my payday's coming in, and they get their $200 one-time check, they don't have to claim that on the federal government taxes. You guys are a lot alike because you keep mentioning that you know enough to be dangerous. Because do you guys find this? Because you're a lawyer, everybody expects you to know everything about law, and you're a doctor, everybody expects everything to know about medicine.
But I do know anything about medicine. I'm full of shit when I say that.
You know, I
know a slice of it. That's it.
I have reached out to Rob because, for a variety of different cases, and he usually does know like a baseline level of anything I ask him. But what guys like us learn that are good in this profession and understand these professions and understand that hoarding all work is not worth it, is you learn to know a guy who knows a guy, and you refer, because it comes back tenfold, right? Yep. I mean, you start referring work to other people that like, hey, know your bailiwick, stay within your lanes, develop relationships with fellow professionals, and sure, you might lose out on this case, but next big one that they have that they don't know how to handle, they'll send to you, and vice versa. Rob is definitely a doc who's a guy who knows a guy on just about everything. Oh, I know that. I've had to make a call, not just for me, but for other people on numerous cases. Hey, do you know a guy? And, Rob knows a guy. So the interesting part about this is where things are going to change now. And Trev Alberts, when he left and went to Texas A&M, and now you hear Troy Dannon talking about it, is that line item of paying players is probably going to go to the university now. I believe we're going to see a place where these guys are getting their NIL check from the university. Where does that put the collectives in your mind? How active will collectives be after this? Because at the end of who's funding all this? Who's really funding all this? You, me, whatever you're a team fan of, because your tickets are going to go up. They're going to keep asking you for money. You, the fan, is the one who's going to fund these guys playing football or basketball or whatever it is.
I mean, I think that's going to be it. But I mean, I also think you're going to see a huge amount from a booster dollar standpoint going into these.
But that's the fan.
It is, but I mean, it is, but it isn't. I mean, so from your general fan, and then there's your person who's donating. I mean, when you talk about your boosters, you've got your $1 million a year corporations donating money. I get it, but there's some people get $500 a year. That's a lot to give. It is which actually, and I mean, there's a couple of guys I know that I'm tight with who are that $5,000 to $10,000 a year donation to the university, to the athletic department. And talking with them, if you look at the single largest percentage of booster dollar going to the university, it's those guys who are giving, kind of like you said, it's the $500 to $1,000 a year on the low end to the $10,000 on the high end. That little sub-segment of boosters is who's providing, that's like 80% of the booster money coming to the universities is from those dollar amount people, because just from a volume standpoint, there's a lot of them now. But now it's going to a separate entity because they're getting hit up by a collective. It is, but I think it's also one of these things where you look at Nebraska and kind of the messaging I got from the Nebraska people I know. Now, a lot of this was before Trev left. So this was pre-Troy Dannon. And a lot of it was like, hey, we're going to try and finish out the football facility. We've got a plan for the stadium renovation. But after that, you're not going to see new facilities in Lincoln for 20 years.
So
because it's all going to be, there's going to be a shift in these dollars over to the NIL side.
Troy Dannon announced this last week that the stadium renovation will take place. However, the phasing of it will be different. They're going to do East and West first. Why is that?
Because that's where your money is.
Ding, 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 ding. 100%. I mean, South Stadium's not going to generate revenue. It's not. I mean, sure, you're going to put butts in the seats. The East and West is going to generate revenue.
I've got family tickets in South Stadium and in West that are both enjoying grandfathering rights. The ones in the West, when those go, not if, but when those go, will be $2,500 a seat before you pay for the ticket. That's at today's prices. That's if I bought them and took them over in my name. That's what would happen. I think they're going to go even higher than that. But I don't know how you pull that off with South Stadium. I don't know how you convince the South Stadium folks. I don't think you need to blow it to the ground. Personally, that's where I sit. Those are, how do I want to put, those are grandpa's seats that I have two of. And he's had them since 62. And if those grandfathering rights go away and nothing else changes, I'm not paying $5,000 a year to stand sideways in a sardine can. I'm just not.
Yeah, no.
Not when I have an 80-inch TV at home for $450 and cold beers right behind me. Bathroom. Yeah, exactly.
Fridge is right there.
I mean, how many games did you go to this last year? Not many. Like one or two.
Went to a couple. Yeah,
he's right.
Like
the 80-inch TV, you're like, I can piss, I can drink, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, a busy year for me is... now, here's the other thing is that I think people are discovering there's other entertainment options out there. Now, I say that in the sense I can go up to Augustana, and hockey's a good one. It really is. But I can go up to Augustana. Guess what? KO Stadium in Sioux Falls. They've got a beer garden. Yep. I can watch the entire game with a bar top table and a craft brew from the beer garden, and it's outstanding.
That's why East and West need to get done, because Memorial Stadium's not set up for beer yet. And you have to set it up for alcohol, and the only way to do that is going to be in the East and West. I mean, you don't think they need to bring South to the ground. I disagree with you. It's an old crumbling thing.
I kind of worry about that from a structural standpoint.
I think you could cut back temporarily, at least if you're going to do nothing in the temporary. I don't think it would cost that much to temporarily put in seat backs, and at least buy yourself a few more seasons and not potentially disenfranchising 23,000 season ticket holders. But I want to say something. Can I jump back?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, who actually hates the House case?
Who?
And who's got to be just hitting their head against the wall?
Who?
The TV stations. Because what the House case is actually about is revenue sharing in the TV deals, because that's their name, their image, their likeness that's on TV. And they're like, damn it, we just upped our rates. They're the ones who are going to have to up to pay for that, because that's where that money comes from. That's the easiest pool to continue to grow, because that's the one who's got the biggest pockets, right? It's the same reason why you see plaintiffs' attorneys who, the other side didn't have insurance, and you don't have enough uninsured, underinsured, I can't take your case. There's no big pockets to go after. That's your big pocket to go after, and that's also where their name, their image, their likeness is being put out the most. Those rates are going to have to continue to skyrocket.
Now, to be fair, the Big 12, Big 10, and SEC are locked in till 2032. So that's not going to change till 2032. The ACC is the bad deal that goes out to 2036. But now that's why you're seeing the push for streaming, right? I mean,
locked in. Why not? If the money's good enough, I mean, look at Clemson and Florida State.
Yeah.
They're seriously considering, and ACC's playing hardball and supposedly telling them, hey, you're going to have to pay every penny of the $360 million to get out. Okay. Fine. If we go to the Big Ten and make $100 million a year, who cares? Sue us. Because you make that up in 3.5 years.
You do. And I think that's going to get settled out of court, too. I think you're going to see a split of Clemson and Florida State.
ACC just doesn't have the leverage to hold them.
No,
they don't.
Zero leverage. But I guess I guess to me, you say locked in. The Big Ten can look back and say, till 2032, we know what we're going to get. We can go back and ask for more money at 2032, right? Or you blow the whole damn thing up. I've been a proponent of this, and Rob will be back because he had to go pee. But I brought this up on my radio show, and I'm becoming a bigger fan of it. And people aren't going to like this. But you go to a European soccer-like model, and there was a model thrown out a couple months ago where you still had the conferences together, and I think it was like 64 teams. I think you go to a 32-team Power 5 or Power, and you have relegation and promotion within that. Like you have 32 teams, but you just have different tiers. It works in Europe for soccer. I mean, Wrexham, they were a fourth tier team. They've moved up to number 3 or number 2 or whatever that is. That's Ryan Reynolds' teams. Why not just say, okay, the top 32, they're going to get the bulk of the money. Then you have pools to work off. And if you want to move up, you got to win, and you have relegation. If you're really bad in that 32, you're going to get demoted down, relegated down.
That's a model that I think has actually been kicked around a couple of times. The reason I say that is because when I met with Jared Lambrecht a long time ago, that was one that was being kicked around even back then. He brought it up, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense. But where we end up, I don't know. All I know is that I think the House case is primarily focused on the NIL topic, and the hard part about this for me is getting people's brains to split pay for play from NIL. I understand why, as a practical matter, everybody believes we're at a pay for play, but categorically speaking, where you eventually end up in a final model of this, there's going to be a pool of money for NIL, and that's where I think a lot of the collectives, sports marketing agents, sports marketing groups are still going to exist, because that's your cherry on top. That's your Nike deal, that's your Gatorade deal, but then there's going to be in-house money that the university is going to have to pay, and where people are confusing things right now is that they're currently saying, well, the university is going to have to be the one that pays the $20 to $25 million line item to them. Sure, the check might eventually come from the university or the conference, but that money is going to be distributed from a TV deal level that's going to pay for those. Now, where the very complex legal questions start to come in is from the salary standpoint, separate and distinct from the NIL stuff. Is salary standpoints paid through the university, and all the legal hoops that come there, and the regulations that are going to have to either change or develop or whatever it may be. One of the first things they mentioned in the ESPN articles on this that have come out the last few days is the workers' compensation portion of this. And that's where you start to go down the collective bargaining side of things, because it doesn't make sense from an economic standpoint to have, how many NCAA athletes get hurt every year? Could you imagine
thousands?
The system would break. Not just the NCAA, but the workers' compensation courts would throw up if they had to sit and take all those on top of the workload they already have. It's incredibly inefficient, and then you're going to pay out workers' compensation rates on scheduled members for somebody who broke a pinky in a football game. How
did it work in the NFL when you got hurt? So was it workers' comp? I know that was part of the collective bargaining agreement.
I'm sure there's a curtain behind which I didn't see a lot. But every team had a staff of physicians that dealt with that stuff. Now, 90% of it, I shouldn't even say that. 99% of it's orthopedic. And so during a football game, you've usually got 3 to 5 orthopedic surgeons on the sideline at any NFL game. Sorry, you've got 3 to 5 orthopedic surgeons, and then usually at least one primary care physician, and then a athletic training staff. So certified athletic trainers. So the vast majority of this is all orthopedic. You break something, you tear something, they will cover they will take care of all of that in-house. So the example I give, my 4th year with the Giants, shoulder injury, had surgery. The Giants team, one of the Giants team orthopedic surgeons did the surgery. The Giants covered all of that. from a rehabilitation standpoint, it didn't make a huge amount of sense for me to stay with the team in New York because I was actually, my contract was up at the time as well.
What they do from a compensation standpoint, did they continue to pay you full checks?
And so I went on injured reserve, and so mine was a little bit complicated because there was a few other things going on. Basically, they paid my salary that year.
So they continued to pay 100%. It wasn't like some sort of reduced amount, like, because in your typical work comp situation where you've got somebody who misses work, you have your PPD, your TTD, and
exactly. And we deal with that because I'm at an orthopedic hospital. We see a huge amount of work comp patients. I understand what you're saying. Mine actually was a reduced contract amount. But it was sort of this negotiation because at the time, there was kind of this gray area where I had the shoulder injury, wasn't performing as well. They're like, okay, Rob's not performing as well. We're going to cut him. And it was actually one of the Giants' head athletic trainers was the one who stood up and was like, listen, we can't cut him. He's injured. He's got this injury. So between the Giants athletic training staff, the Giants themselves, and my agent, they kind of worked out this, okay, let's do this. We're not going to cut Rob. We'll cover his shoulder surgery. We'll take care of all medical for the shoulder surgery, rehab included. We'll put him in injured reserve, which means he still draws a salary. But dude, we were going to cut this guy. Can we go with a lower salary? And so we negotiated a lower salary. So it was a little complicated. There was more than just Rob got hurt. Like it was different than Rob's a full-time starter, had a season-ending injury. In that case, I would have gotten full salary. I would have gotten full medical. This was, hey, we're going to cut Rob. Hold on a second. The reason Rob hasn't been performing as well is because of the shoulder injury. Let's fix the shoulder. We'll pay him his season salary, but it's going to be a slightly reduced amount, and we'll cover all medical. So, and in my mind, I'm sitting there going, okay, well, yeah, that sounds very reasonable to me. But that's a little. There was extenuating circumstances. But the point I was going to make is that I wanted to come back to Nebraska to train because I'm thinking here, going like, okay, you guys were going to cut me anyway. You're now paying me at least like a 60% what my salary would have been. You're covering all medical. I'm most definitely probably not going to be on the team next year because you're going to cut me anyway. Can I just go back to Nebraska and do my rehab there? And the Giants were like, yeah, we'll cover that for you. So they worked out a deal. I did all of my rehab down at UNL with the athletic training staff down in Lincoln, and the Giants covered it. They paid for it.
Where I want to circle back though is the mechanics that gave the rules of engagement there. I'm sure if you asked your agent, was the collective bargaining that happened set up the parameters in which we can negotiate. What we currently have, nobody knows.
Yeah, and
right. So if you go to an employment model without any of that stuff in place, it could be a disaster.
There was a very well defined, and this is what actually, and that's what kind of triggered the Giants' head athletic trainer at the time to stand up when they were like, hey, we're going to cut Rob. He just hasn't been performing. The head athletic trainer for the team was in on that meeting, and he was the one who stood up and was like, hey, guys, hold on a second. Rob's injured. According to the rules, we can't cut him because there's
And there's a workers' compensation court out in New York that's thankful that rule existed, so you didn't have to file a complaint just to get there.
Yeah, they're sitting there going like, hey, we can't cut them because if we do, Rob's going to come back and say, I was injured, I couldn't perform, this is why.
And then you have a wrongful termination, which is a lot bigger deal than a work comp claim.
Exactly. And so the Giants were like, they were very much then like, all right, the only thing we're asking is we were going to cut him anyway. Can we negotiate a contract a salary reduction? So my agent, the general managers got together, crunched some numbers, came up with a dollar amount. We were like, yeah, we can live with that.
This is why you're going to see a union in college. This will be negotiated. There will be eventually there will be a collective bargaining agreement, and all this stuff will be taken care of. It's just a matter of time.
Was it Dartmouth who already did it?
No, UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham, who's Trent Dilfer.
I thought one of the Ivy League schools had one that did it.
But they don't matter. And what I mean by they don't matter. I mean, Ivy League is a non-scholarship type football. UAB is the first Division I school to have 100% participate. They're not ready to collective bargaining yet, but they all signed up for a union because Trent Dilfer, who's their head coach, said, guys, I lived this as a pro. Get in it now because you're going to be in it sooner or later. Don't act on it yet, but just wait and be a part of it. They're the first school to go 100% in.
I got $5 as a Ivy League guy drafted their paperwork, though.
Maybe so. Maybe so. I want to go back to the collectives real quick because we're going to wrap it up because we're about an hour and 11 minutes in. So you're saying 1890 at Nebraska will still play a part. My question would be why? To me, if Nebraska's going to take care of the line item of paying the salary, should we say, why not just hire you as a sports agent to work out the marketing deal? Why do you need a collective in this point? That's a big sigh.
I'm not sure anybody needs a collective. I think they could have done this all along. And frankly, I think it's really hard for a collective to operate in a unbiased, even naturally, because you're representing, on the one hand, millionaires and billionaires that are very sophisticated businessmen and women. And you're also supposedly representing 17 and 18-year-old kids who...
It's a conflict of interest.
I was asked to come in, and I won't say who, I was asked to come in and help run one. I've got a law degree. I've got a law license, which makes me subject to a professional code of ethics that I think precludes me from even trying to do that. Now, can you operate in conflict in certain situations in an arm's length where you have a signed waiver of conflict? Sure. But that's not what's going on at those levels. But there's the politics that's also behind it. I think some of them will persist for at least in the short term because of who's behind them and who supports them. And if that leads to more deals for athletes, great. But, I think in general, I think you'll have a salary pool that's paid for by the university, and then you'll have marketing deals for the kids, some of which I think will continue to come from collectives for at least a little bit. But I think you'll see a mixture. I think you'll see a lot of I agree with you. I do think that the collective model is a temporary solution to a long-term problem. And I think once these kids get unionized and they realize, hey, I need somebody personally in my corner to come fight for me that cares only about me and not 100 other kids and not 50,000 boosters that have, deep pockets. I want somebody who only cares about me. But that education comes with unionization because they're put through classes that say, hey, you might want to protect these things for yourself. And it's not just about the paycheck. It's about the paycheck and making that go to work for you in the future and protecting your legal rights now.
And they got to be legitimate marketing deals. What I mean by that, you shouldn't get paid to go to some nonprofit and say hello to somebody. I mean, that's happening right now. Is that I know at the Swarm Collective, and I think, believe it, even the We Will Collective over in Iowa. I mean, they run, they help nonprofit organizations out. Yeah, but all you're doing is saying, go play a wheelchair basketball game and get paid,
Those will go away once salaries are in.
I hope so.
They will.
To me, because you're right. The Gatorade deals, the coldest Crawford, that was still the best marketing deal Nebraska's ever seen. It was.
Well, then the polar bear stepped in and took over it.
But that's in the true spirit of NIL right there.
I can't remember what what Dennis group it was, but they had the punter who came in and he was punting candy away from you.
See,
that was awesome.
But see, that's what
NIL actually is.
That's what NIL is.
Which on a high level, and I agree with you. On a high level, I look at like Caitlin Clark over at Iowa,
who didn't use any swarm money. She got all hers through the rate.
And that was the thing. I mean, she's got the Hy-Vee deal. She's got was it at State Farm?
State Farm, Gatorade, Hy-Vee.
I mean, she had all of these massive deals. None of it was University of Iowa related.
No, none.
I mean, it's kind of one of these. It's hard to call Gatorade and State Farm and Hy-Vee grassroots, but she kind of did the grassroots stuff on a massive scale.
Not everybody's marketable, right? Yeah. Not everybody is marketable.
100%.
So you're either marketable or you're not. Yeah. And if you're marketable, go make money.
Yeah, I think the thing that's going to be tough for a school like Nebraska to get past is that you have... We're a small state, and I say that in the sense of population. Everybody knows everybody, and you've got this very, very firmly entrenched good old boy network that it was this booster donor network before NIL ever started. And when NIL started... And this happened nationwide. Everybody was like...
Brown bags of cash.
Yeah, it was basically one of these like, holy shit, the rules just went away. We can do all this stuff now. So all the boosters did it. They're doing it very legally as a NIL collective. It's one of those things. The thing that's going to get tough to get around at a place like Nebraska is that there is this, again, I hope I'm not offending too many people here by saying it's a good old boy network that's going to be sitting here going like, well, why would I give the money directly to the university again when I've been giving it to these guys?
I think in this crowd, you're preaching to the choir. We both came from small towns.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're used to good old boy networks. That is one thing, though, I will say it'll be interesting to watch because I think long term there probably isn't a total need for a collective for a lot of schools out there. You do have the political arm to it, but you also have the, like Nebraska. We've got a couple of large donors for sure, but we're primarily built $5,000 and $10,000 donations in mass. And if you want power in numbers from a buying perspective. What I would like to see change, though, is if you're out there soliciting donations to go purchase an athlete, don't represent both sides. I would like to get all the money in, pool the money for your buying power purposes. I get that, but I don't think it's fair to the kid for them to represent both sides. I really don't.
Because there's bad NIL deals out there. You're signing with a collective, which is not. They're working on the best interest of them. And probably the donor, right? And
look at the kid from Florida. I can't remember his name offhand, but he for a $400,000 check gave up a significant, not an insignificant portion of his NFL salary, and over time it's going to pale in comparison.
And there's been baseball players that have been caught in that type of 100% arrangement as well.
Marvin Harrison Jr. is getting sued by Fanatics right now because he's not fulfilling his deal that he did with Fanatics that he signed in 2023. He's saying, well, I've got a better offer coming along. He's doing his own signing thing. I mean, so after this House case is settled, and it's just a matter of time before we start seeing more of these bad deals being exposed by players going back and say, I signed a really bad deal.
The contracts aren't written for when deals go good. They're written for when deals go wrong. So one of the ones we first looked at and what really kind of got me off my ass to actually push this harder, and I'm not going to throw any companies under the bus because I want to believe that this wasn't on purpose. They're big enough that they can afford enough attorneys that somebody should have seen it. But the way the contract read is it had the kid indemnifying said big company and their videographers and their sponsors for third-party claims with no limitation of liability whatsoever in exchange for $2,000 and $5,000 checks. So in other words, said big company is fully in control of the entirety of what you're producing. And I show up as little athlete who got a $2,500 check, and I do a 30-second spot, and I read off a card, and I go home. Well, if I read off that card and I say, just do it, and the brand behind me is Adidas, I'm in violation of the Lanham Act, which at the federal level means that I'm on the hook for attorney's fees for the other side for their infringement. You got brand name confusion, and you've got trade name infringement, arguably speaking. And then under the contract that I was reading, you were also having to pay said big companies attorney's fees. So you're with no limitation whatsoever. Typically speaking, what you're going to see when that thing's properly negotiated, even if you get your ass kicked on the rest of those terms, that's going to be limited to your liability is limited to what we paid you. Because that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you're doing at that point, I'm just a paid for spokesperson that's saying what you want me to say. So why should I be on the line for anything more than you paid me? That kid's potentially exposed to millions. Now, that hasn't happened yet. None of those have gone south. None of those have gotten sued. But that's a horrific outcome. If and when those happen, hopefully we get to a point to where we have education in the schools. And that's where, under the current developing landscape, that's a lot of the positive that I like, is that the schools are allowed to come in and educate these kids now and be involved, at least to a minimal amount. That's helping.
The schools have to be involved. They have to be involved in some way. Connor, great stuff, man. This was a serious podcast. This is like one of the more serious ones we've done, but it's a good one to kick off the middle of May, heading right into June. My daughter's getting married, so it may be a couple weeks before we're back in the studio. Connor Orr, thank you so much for coming in. We've been trying to do this since like Christmas, and I forgot your gift. We have a Christmas gift for you that we still haven't been able to exchange with you. If you got
flooded.
That's what everybody tells the redheads. We just forgot the gift.
If you like what Connor had to say and you need some legal representation, whether that's litigation, some real estate stuff, some business stuff, go to orlawgrp.com. That's orlawgrp.com, or give Connor a call at 402-408-6488. And get your G-Defy shoes. GravityDefyer.com. Doc Talk 20 on orders $120 or more.
I'm a believer.
Or $30 off of orders $150 or more before taxes and shipping. Thanks for listening. Follow us on YouTube. Not follow us, subscribe to our channel. Follow us and subscribe to our channel on Podbean, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to this podcast. For Dr. Rob Zadisker, for Connor Orr, for Owen Justice, I'm Travis Justice. We'll talk to you next time on the Doc Talk Podcast.